40% of modern households report a persistent sense of unexplained emotional exhaustion within their own walls. This statistics reveals a harsh truth about the spaces we call our sanctuaries. Why do we invest thousands of dollars decorating our homes, yet feel completely depleted the moment we step inside? Could it be that the invisible atmosphere we cultivate is quietly working against us? I used to believe that spiritual peace was automatic, especially if you hung a blessed sign on the wall. But reality taught me a very different lesson. A few years ago, I bought an antique stone sculpture at a local flea market. It looked beautiful on my living room shelf, and I proudly placed a peace declaration right next to it. Yet over the following weeks, a strange and heavy restlessness settled over our family. We were arguing more and sleeping less. At first, I deeply questioned my own sanity. I asked myself if I was just being overly superstitious or projecting my work stress onto a harmless piece of rock. It sounds ridiculous to think an inanimate object could hold that much power. But then I realized the truth. The object itself was not a magical portal, but my own lack of spiritual awareness had created a blind spot. I had normalized an environment of compromise and stopped actively guarding the threshold of my home. The physical items we keep and the ordinary habits we tolerate are never truly neutral. They either reinforce a frequency of harmony or they leave the door wide open for chaos. Today, we are going to expose the 7 subtle habits that dismantle your peace from the inside out. The first dangerous habit is accommodating passive media consumption without an active spiritual filter. Many people believe that watching a movie or listening to a song is just harmless entertainment that leaves no trace. I used to tell myself the exact same thing while sitting on my couch, watching intense psychological thrillers and cynical comedies. I argued that my intellect was strong enough to separate fiction from reality and that it had zero impact on my spiritual well-being. But I was completely wrong. When we lower our guard, we are not just relaxing. We are allowing external narratives to subtly condition our emotional responses. The issue is not the television itself, but our choice to become passive spectators in our own domain. The second habit that quietly erodes your sanctuary is accumulating emotional patches instead of resolving conflicts. Every single household experiences friction and disagreement because that is a natural part of human relationships. However, there is a massive difference between an occasional argument and a systematic cycle of unresolved tension. Consider a family trapped in a repetitive loop of shouting and silence every single week for 3 consecutive years. That equals 156 weeks of continuous inner warfare within their own walls. My initial reaction to this data was to blame external spiritual attacks or generational curses. But when I looked closer at my own past arguments, I had to confront a much more painful truth. We often sustain conflicts because our pride demands a temporary truce rather than a genuine resolution. When anger is buried alive, it does not disappear. It creates a toxic emotional residue that makes the environment heavy. This brings us to the third habit, which is allowing the frantic pace of modern life to evaporate your shared silence. No one consciously decides to stop praying or meditating with their family. It usually happens so gradually that you do not even notice the exact moment the practice slips away. Mornings become an intense race against the clock, and evenings are consumed by a cascade of digital screens. The spiritual temperature of the home drops imperceptibly until a profound disconnection becomes the new normal. We lose our shared fortress, not because we invited negativity in, but because we forgot to consciously invite peace to stay. The fourth dangerous habit is retaining physical anchors of past negative experiences and mixed spiritual frequencies. Some teachers claim that keeping an old mystical souvenir or a curious book on ancient rituals creates an immediate demonic gateway. When I first heard this perspective, I deeply questioned the validity of such intense alarmism. I wondered how an inanimate object sitting in a dark drawer could possibly possess the power to alter the atmosphere of a human life. It seemed like a fragile way to view spiritual authority, as if we are helpless victims of material belongings. But as I examined my own workspace, I uncovered a deeper psychological and spiritual mechanism at play. I discovered an old wooden box hidden in the upper corner of the attic, containing relics from a highly stressful period of personal failure. The object itself was just wood and metal, but every time my eyes caught it, a wave of stagnant energy and old bitterness flooded my mind. We often hold on to things that remind us of darkness or keep us tethered to a vibration of confusion and compromise. By leaving these anchors undisturbed, we are maintaining a subconscious connection to the very frequencies we claim to reject. The fifth habit that pollutes your environment is transforming the family dinner table into a courtroom of social judgment. Gossip and casual slander are frequently disguised as innocent catch-up conversations or shared venting sessions after a long day. We sit down to nourish our bodies, but instead we fill the room with critical remarks about the failures and choices of people outside our walls. This habit creates a thick atmosphere of defensiveness where children quickly learn that vulnerability is unsafe. They realize that if the mistakes of others are used as entertainment, their own flaws will likely face the same harsh judgment. The words spoken within your boundaries become the psychological soil in which your family roots grow. When you replace the habit of critique with deliberate appreciation, you instantly shift the internal frequency of your entire home. The sixth dangerous habit is constructing your lifestyle on a foundation of subtle financial secrecy. This pattern does not always look like an overt crime, but manifests as small and highly normalized acts of domestic deception. It is the habit of intentionally hiding credit card debts or misrepresenting your business revenue to your family. When money becomes a source of hidden shame and ongoing dishonesty, the fundamental trust inside the house begins to fracture. I once assumed that financial matters were entirely technical and completely disconnected from the spiritual energy of a home. I believed that as long as the bills were paid on time, our emotional foundation would remain totally secure. But when I looked at the sudden waves of unexplained anxiety within our walls, I had to radically change my perspective. The unspoken friction and the heavy atmosphere were not random events, but the direct result of hidden financial stress. When we allow micro-deceptions into our financial dealings, we are actively carving microscopic cracks into our own fortress. The seventh habit that leaves your threshold entirely unguarded is abdicating your active role as the protector of the space. Many individuals provide physical security and economic stability, but completely abandon their spiritual leadership. They never take a definitive stand to set the emotional tone or verbally declare peace over the rooms where their loved ones sleep. True stewardship is not limited by your gender or your specific family structure. Whether you are a single parent or a quiet guardian, you possess the inherent right to establish order in your domain. We must view our home not as a casual shelter, but as an essential territory that requires constant and vigilant watch. When you refuse to stand guard at the gate, you leave the internal environment highly vulnerable to every external wave of chaos. Every square foot of your living space demands an active conscious presence who refuses to compromise on harmony. Reclaiming the sanctuary of your home does not require complex rituals or living in a state of constant fear. It simply demands an uncompromising decision to initiate a 24-hour emotional and spiritual detox. Begin by walking through your rooms with a fresh perspective and identifying the physical anchors that spark tension. Remove the chaotic media choices and clear away the hidden corners that accumulate heavy energy and old regrets. Initiate an honest conversation with your partner to replace financial secrecy with absolute transparency and mutual trust. Commit to transforming your dinner table into a space dedicated exclusively to gratitude rather than social critique. When you actively step into your responsibility as the guardian of your boundary, the atmosphere shifts immediately. Your living environment will cease to function as a psychological battlefield and finally become the fortress of peace it was designed to be. Thank you so much for watching this video and taking this critical step toward transforming your home today. If this perspective resonated with your journey, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and join our community of intentional living.